Climate change, complex crisis risks, migration, natural disasters, they all call for new risk information that is timely, global, and more reliable. This is essential to scaling up and increasing the impact of risk financing applications worldwide. Since 2019, the joint partnership between the Finance Global Partner Practice at the World Bank and the European Space Agency leverages satellite data to support ex-ante and forecast-based financing to a wide range of risks, including drought, flood, food insecurity, earthquakes, pandemics, and other complex crises. Ultimately, providing support to governments and decision makers to develop parametric insurance, cat bonds, or quick response budget lines to protect populations, livelihoods, and economies from the impact of crises and disasters. A quick overview of our partnership with ESA, highlighting the demand and some of the proposed solutions that leverage satellite data either at sort of capacity building level or through the development of practical demand-driven solutions on risk financing. Highlight number one is the next generation Drought Index platform, the NGDI. We know that information such as the actual impact on livelihoods materializes in the case of a drought very long after the event has started to develop, sometimes 9 to 12 months afterwards. We also know that satellite-based drought indicators are very early proxies that characterize the ultimate impact of a drought and are available very early, sometimes months before the actual harvest. So there's a clear gap to be filled there in terms of providing clients and decision makers with access to that information so that financial response to food insecurity and affected populations can be addressed very early on in the process. And this is where our World Bank ESA partnership is critical in providing access to free, open, global data, including of the Copernicus constellation, for better protected populations with quick financing solutions where needed and when most needed. Another couple of slides highlighting also the potential to operationalize the exposure mapping from satellite data, helping identify what crops are being grown where, and therefore how to better target our financial response efforts. And finally, some features of the NGDI platform, including on the co-design process and convergence of evidence approach. Highlight number two is the use of medium to high resolution satellite data to better respond to climate risks faced by the financial sector. One of the key applications here is on the environmental change and climate risk monitoring to better anticipate, address physical risk from climate change, transition risk, as well as liability risks and opportunities faced by companies, regulators, and investors globally. Out of the 50 essential climate variables released by the Global Climate Observing System, along with WMO, almost 2/3 can only be observed from space, making satellite data a very critical component of climate monitoring for sort of greening the financial systems and greening investments worldwide. Another example of high resolution data for exposure mapping through identification of the built environment. And finally, highlight 3 on the putting to use all of these different features in the case of MENA and in particular Morocco. Here through the example of exposure mapping, including public infrastructure, residential, commercial, industrial buildings, not only for risk financing, but more broadly speaking for risk management applications, including post-event flood extent mapping through high-resolution satellite data. In conclusion, the current COVID crisis shows how critical it is to act early and to support decision-making with the right information at the right time. Following recent developments of satellite technology in the past decade, satellite data and big data now allow to collect and process unprecedented streams of observations so that complex and emerging risks can now be addressed through new kinds of policy and risk financing instruments. Thank you very much for your attention.